Jesus gone, Judas gone. Now what? You think your church has problems? You don't know the start of the very first church. I told you we're not going to study the book of Acts in depth, but my hope is that you will grow in your hunger for the Bible and excitement to use the tools that I'm going to help equip you to study this with. So since we're not covering everything in depth, that might mean that we go through things quickly. I'm going to cover everything from Acts 1:4 to 2:13. Now, feel free to go and read this on your own. There's a lot of exciting stuff and some foundational principles to Christian living. But let me ask you a question. What would you want your final words to be? Think about it. Most of us never get to plan this. But if you could, what would you want your last words on this earth to be? Jesus, knowing all things, did get to plan what he was going to say. At the end of Matthew, we studied the mission, or what some people call the Great Commission of Christians. Those are Jesus' last words in the book of Matthew. But in Acts 1:8, Luke records what is actually thought to be Jesus' final words. You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses, telling people about me everywhere, in Jerusalem, throughout Judea, to Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. The order he puts those in is pretty important. City, state, place you don't like, the rest of the world. Have you ever thought of going on a mission trip? Going to a foreign country to share what Jesus has done and the gift that he is? What about sharing that with your friend at school? Which of those is easier? Many times we can think about doing the big things before we do the small things well. You have to crawl before you walk. You have to walk before you can run. Jesus wants you to be a witness for him and the things that he's done to the people he's placed in your circle of influence. Then you go from there. But don't forget about the people you don't like. Jesus specifically mentions Samaria. This is a region inside the area of Judea, but it's a people group that the Israelites are infamously opposed to. So you have to be willing to do things you don't want to do. Then Jesus gets taken up in a cloud. Two angels ask the disciples why they're staring up at the sky. They tell them that Jesus is gone, but he'll be back. Then in Acts 1:12 through 26, the disciples try to find a replacement for Judas. They arrive at Matthias after considering all the candidates, but that's not the most interesting part. Read verse 14. Go on. Who else was there with the disciples? Jesus' mom, other women, and his brothers. Jesus had brothers? Yeah. Remember that a little bit later. It'll be important when we bring up some other books of the Bible later. And how many people were there in verse 15? 120. Right. You'll want to have a calculator ready over the next few episodes to experience the growth that is going to exist within this early church. Also, this is around the average size of a church in America. The reason for this psychologically is this is about the number that people feel comfortable with in a large group setting where they still kind of have to know everybody. Then comes a controversial day in some Christian circles. Pentecost. One of my least favorite things is when Christians argue with each other about things that honestly don't really matter. It makes us look bad to other people who are not Christians. Totally not the purpose of life as a Christian. Take a look at what happens in Acts 2:1 through 13. I know, reading 13 verses is a lot to ask, so I'm going to recap it, but please just go read it on your own. Keep me honest. Those 120 people are together, and there's a roar and a wind, and little flames hover over their heads. And then they start speaking other languages. Okay, let me stop right there. This is where the controversy is. It calls those little flames tongues. And then it says that they speak in other languages. The rest of the verses talk about how the people there are amazed because they can hear their native language coming from these people, even though it's not their country of origin. So some traditions that are more focused on the Holy Spirit and the work of the Holy Spirit would say that this is what's called speaking in tongues. It's a heavenly language, not from this earth. Now, I'm not sure if the disciples were given a miraculous ability to speak in another language, or if the hearers just were given the ability to have holy hearing aids. But as I read this, it is clear that this is not a heavenly language. But it's no less amazing that these people were able to be communicated to and hear this amazing news in this way. In the grand scheme, does it really matter? This is the question I ask of all Christians in the middle of these kinds of arguments. If it doesn't change the fact that Jesus came and died for every single person who has ever sinned, and that he is the way of salvation, then why does it matter? Stop fighting with the same team. If you're not a Christian, wow. How crazy is this? Jesus rides on a cloud, flames over people's heads, and people are speaking Greek as a Hebrew. Welcome to life with God. Amazing, unexplainable, roller coaster. And if you look at verse 14, they all thought that they were drunk. Classic. Some of you may think that about me right now. Go ahead, take a peek at Acts 2:14. First 4 words. Then Peter stepped forward. That's what they call a teaser. You gotta come back for the next episode. Share this if you found this interesting and want someone else to see it. Subscribe to keep up with all the shorts and full episodes.